Hi, this is Peter Godinez, your ambassador with KEDY TV, with a version of Good Morning Port Hueneme. We're here in the historic Museum of Port Hueneme, and we have the good pleasure of having Jon Sharkey, the mayor of Port Hueneme. So welcome.
Thank you, Peter.
It's good to see you again.
Good to be here.
Yeah, and God, Measure M has taken on an actual spirit and it's live, and so much to be said about it. What we were hoping for you to do is educate us, inform us, dissolve any type of rumors that are going on, but just educate our audience on what they should know, really.
Okay. Well, thank you, sir. This is actually a pretty mundane or update to a pretty boring law. It's a business license fee. Any business that does business in any city in California has to buy a license fee. That's part of the payment for impacts that are made on the community. So there's nothing unusual about this. Every city does it. The problem we have is the ordinance that we have now was passed in 1978 and it hasn't been updated since. I've been trying to get this done for the last 10 years or so, and there's a lot of heavy lifting involved. We had to have the right executive staff in place and the will to do it. So we're finally getting around to it. But let's think about 1978. Nobody had a personal computer, or if you did, it was that little funny box on your desk that didn't do much. Cell phones, I remember my boss had a car phone that was about that big. A whole lot of businesses that exist now didn't even exist then. Gasoline was 65 cents a gallon.
Oh wow, I remember that.
We bought a house here for $48,000. So a lot has changed since then. But what hasn't changed is the rates in our business license fee, and the businesses that are enumerated in the business license fee. They haven't changed. So it's high time we updated this, and that's all we're doing. And unfortunately, this has got tied up with some political issues and our dispute with the Oxnard Harbor District, and they thought they could use this as a bargaining chip or political football or a way to poke us in the eye, and put out a lot of misinformation about it, quite frankly. If you look at the rates that we're projecting, right now, from our business license fee, we get over $350,000. We're projecting that the new ordinance will bring in somewhere in the neighborhood of $1 million, maybe a little more, maybe a little less. But if you look at the rate of inflation, it's 350%. We're well within the rate of inflation. So it's not out of line at all. It's actually very reasonable. And without getting into the complexities of the rate setting process, the voters in 1996 passed a thing called Prop 218, the Right to Vote on Taxes Act. And what that does is set a maximum rate you could ever charge for anything. So when we look at the maximum rates that are built into Measure M, we're trying to build in a little headroom because hopefully we don't go another 40 years, but at some point we may need to adjust things. And the state law in California says you can only do that in general elections. So it's only every 2 years can you make an adjustment. It has to go to a vote. So if you want to make if you set the rates too low and you want to make a minor tweak, you have to go through a whole election process again. So we're trying to build in a little headroom so this will have a life expectancy so that we don't have to go through the election process every 2 years to make minor changes. And this is the way every city in California does it. Some of the opposition has tried to paint this as outlandish, as weird. It's not. This is how every city in California does it. And our legal staff, our lawyer, he's worked for decades in local government with numerous cities in Southern California. The language in Measure M is pretty much boilerplate from what other cities use. There's nothing unusual about it. It's just that there are people who, quite frankly, right now have not been paying anything. We've got some big corporations in town, Exxon, Del Monte, BMW. A number of them aren't paying anything at all. But yet, the little coffee shop, the dry cleaners, the guy that runs the Chinese restaurant, they're all paying $100, $200, $300, $400, $500. And the situation we have now is just not fair. And it's not fair because this 37-year-old law has gotten out of whack over the years. And, you know, I understand nobody wants to pay more than they're paying now. But the opposition basically is saying, you know, hey, we've got a free ride and we want it to continue. And they're putting a lot of money into a campaign against us. They get $50,000 in the bank account in Sacramento. They're trying to run this political campaign against us. You know, and I say, if you had $50,000 and you invested it in the city of Port Hueneme, what could you do? Could you resurface the tennis courts? You know, buy iPads for school kids? You know, what could you do with that money if you invested it in the city in which you're doing business and making a profit? And that's all, you know, but they would rather spend that money fighting us than invest back into the city in which they're doing their business. And, you know, that's, you know, I'm sorry, that's not right. This is about fairness.
So nobody can just read Measure M and just come to a conclusion to it? Is it that just difficult, that wordy?
Well,
because obviously this
yeah.
is just not based on the facts. There's a lot of emotion,
Right.
a lot of intention.
Right, and the opposition is counting on the fact that most people don't understand what a business license fee is. They don't know how much it should be. So they're throwing a lot of scary numbers out there. What Measure M does, and any kind of law like this, it's not just Measure M, it's any of these laws that have to go through, well, you know, what we call the 218 process, to go to the voters to set the rates. It builds a box. It sets a ceiling limit, it sets parameters on the side, and then you have to have a rate setting process. You have to have hearings to set the actual rates for the businesses. You fill in the blanks, and as I said, we built in headroom, so chances are we'll set rates low. I want to eliminate business license fees on some small businesses. You know, if you're starting up, I don't want to. The first thing you do is we hit you with a business license fee. Well, you can pay your phone bill with that. So the city council can set the rates at 0. I mean, you know, if you want to do a calculation, let's assume we're setting the rates at 0. We could do that just as easily as set them at the maximum. So what people have to understand is that we're in a competitive environment here. The city of Oxnard's right across the street. If we're too expensive to do business, people are going to move across the street to Oxnard. We don't want that to happen. We want people to do business here. And if you look at some of the numbers that are being put out by the opposition, to bring it kind of home to a level people understand. A lot of people have dogs. You have a dog license, you know, you pay $25, $30, or if it's spayed and neutered, it's a little more, whatever. But if I told you tomorrow the county was going to set the dog license fee at $5,000, would you believe me? You know, that's how far out of line the numbers being put out by the no side are. You know, they're projecting, they have one customer, they say, well, his rates are going to go up $1.4 million. Well, our entire projection for every business in the city is about $1 million. So that's, they're saying one guy is going to pay more than we're saying the whole city's going to pay. So that's how far in line it is. And they're just counting on the fact that most people just don't understand, because most people don't have business licenses. You know, that's the other thing. This is not a tax on people in the city. This is a tax on folks that are doing business in the city. Every city does this. And so it's very easy to confuse people on this.
Well, that was very informative, John.
Okay.
I see why you're the mayor.
Well, thank you.
Thank you so much for
All right.
informing our audience on Measure M. So again, thanks so much.
Thank you. Good to see
And
you.
again, this is Peter Godinez, your ambassador, K81 TV, with Good Morning Port Hueneme. So till